Welcome to The Practical Intuitive, where each Monday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 Eastern, where host Robin Fritz explores mind, body, and spirit for the real world. Because we are all intuitives and healers, and we must all learn to love ourselves and live that love every day. Robin is a trained and certified intuitive and spiritual consultant and hypnotherapist with an international practice based in Seattle, Washington. As the Practical Intuitive, she covers personal and business intuition, animal communication, mediumship, space clearing, past life regression, shamanic insights, energy healing, soul choice. It's all here. Readings, healings, and funny, warm, thought-provoking conversations. It's Robin Fritz, the Practical Intuitive, helping you mastermind body and spirit for the real world. No ifs, ands, buts, or BS ever.
Welcome to the Practical Intuitive, Mind, Body, Spirit for the Real World. It's Robin Fritz, and we're live in Seattle, Washington. Actually, we're pre-recorded today, so I jumped ahead of myself. So normally, I love it when people can call in and ask questions, comment, get a quick reading. Today's October 22nd, 2018 show is pre-recorded. So if you have questions or comments for me or my special guest today, please email me at my website, robinfritz.com. That's ROBYNFRITZ.com. And I'd love to hear from you, as I do every week. So welcome again. The Practical Intuitive radio show podcast is all about helping us tap our innate healing and intuitive abilities. And for that, we cover a variety of subjects, helping us tap into our own selves, helping us make our contribution in the world. And as we start out today, as always, I want to help listeners get grounded and balanced in this space with us with a quick guided meditation with Crystal Fallon. Fallon is a citrine Lemurian quartz, a very rare power energy. And if you just imagine you're connecting to this crystal and to the audience that OMTimes has here for us, imagine mind, body, and spirit coming together, and as you breathe down from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet, just imagine yourself relaxing, getting balanced and grounded, relaxing into your chair, the cares of the day going away, and you're taking this time for yourself. So breathing down from the top of your head, down your face, your shoulders, your chest, your hips, your knees, and your feet. The top of your head to the bottom of your feet. Feel those cares going away. Feel yourself settling in for the hour with us. And now as you breathe up from the bottom of your feet to the top of your head, imagine a beautiful gold light flooding your body, going straight to your heart, and with each beat of your heart, filling you up with healthy, positive energy, mind, body, and spirit. So breathing up from your feet, past your knees, your hips, your chest, your shoulders, your face, and the top of your head. So again, thank you for joining me today. My special guest today is Robert Martin. Robert is an author and a grandparent, and we're going to be talking about advocating for at-risk children with all of the special things that Robert has done, especially in the last few years, and talking about how we support our families through life-threatening and life-ending situations. And this subject is very dear to my heart, and I want to just put it out there. I was 9 years old when my brother Randy was sent to Salem, Oregon, we lived in a small town in Salem. My parents were very big on Catholic education. We did not have a Catholic school in our area, so he lived with my grandparents in Salem so he could go to a Catholic high school. But within a few months, he became ill, and I remember visiting him in the hospital, and it was time to say goodbye for the day, and he reached out to me, and I took his hand, and as I looked in his eyes, I was like, wow, it stuck with me. He was saying goodbye, and I didn't know what that meant. I just saw it. And now, as I work as a professional intuitive and energy healer, I understand what I was seeing back then. But instead, one day, shortly after that, I came home. My parents had called us home, and as I walked through the door, my mother said, "Randy went to heaven an hour ago." And I am therefore a sibling of a sibling who died very, very young. Randy was 14, I was 9. And I have spent my life recuperating from that, reaching out to help other people and trying to fill that own gap that comes when something as devastating as the loss of a sibling happens in your life. So it is very special for me to welcome a grandfather who lost a grandchild and to share with you what he has done to support at-risk children. And it's my great honor to welcome Robert Martin here today to talk with us about his experiences and what he's doing. So, Robert, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Robin, and I'm sorry to hear about the journey, that difficult journey that you had early in your life.
Yes.
But apparently it had an impact in steering you in a direction that's helped an awful lot of people. So in some ways, your brother, I'm sure, is looking down and saying, "That'll way to go, sis."
Yeah, thank you. In those days, it was many, many years ago. In those days, they didn't have the support for families like we have today. And my family was just taken by surprise. You didn't know what to do. The good thing about, and there is no good thing about it, but one outside benefit to this was my father was a pharmacist, and he and my mother wanted to do something, and the doctors told them there was nothing they could do for my brother, but could they use this experimental drug and see what information they could get to help other people. That drug was methotrexate, and when I was in college, it saved the life of a friend of mine who had leukemia. And in his later years, methotrexate helped my father, and now it's helping a dear friend of mine with rheumatoid arthritis. So I think it's very courageous when people go through a devastating situation like this and can come out of it by offering something to the rest of the world. And that's certainly what you have done, Robert. So tell the audience a little bit about who you are, what work you did before this came up, and what you're doing now for at-risk children.
Sure. Thank you, Robin. Well, my career was with a Fortune 500 company. My career was essentially internationally. I ran companies in South America, in Africa, and Asia. Then was a division president international with responsibility, and traveled extensively throughout the world. But in my early years at my company, I was always trying to help children in countries where I lived, because they were underdeveloped countries, and these children basically needed help. And it was my first introduction on the rewards that I received from helping other kids. So that became a commitment for me. So when I retired,
that is awesome.
When I retired about 15 years ago, I said, well, I always wanted to write, so I went back to college to learn the craft of writing, and that helped me shape my mission, which essentially is to inspire kids to chase their dreams and to help those who can't. So when I started off writing books, it was essentially to help kids to chase their dreams. But as you said, Robin, 3 years ago, my granddaughter, Clara, who was, I think, 4 at the time, was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. And I put my writing aside, and then spent the next 2 years from 5 a.m. until I couldn't stand up anymore, searching for a solution, for a treatment, or a cure. And I learned a lot about in those years. First, on the plus side, we had a very close family. Raising children outside the United States is kind of is the right place, or is a place that kind of encourages families to be close for all kinds of reasons. But this reached out even further. So as our whole family came together to try to save Clara, and sadly, that objective was not successful, and she passed away just about exactly 1 year ago today. It was on October 8th.
I am so sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you. So, through my research, I learned that there were some disappointments in the way we approach research. There were opportunities for doing it even better. So, for example, the level of collaboration within the scientific community needs to improve. The corporate world learned that back in the 80s, but it was easier for us to do it because we could change the reward systems that would get us to collaborate. It's tougher in the research field where the reward system is a little bit difficult to put into place to get people to collaborate. I mean, they really want that recognition. It could be the Nobel Prize, it could be royalties, but so that's one issue.
Can I ask I want to ask a quick question
Sure.
on that, Robert. I live in Seattle, Washington, and we have the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Center, and it's probably not the proper name for it. Actually did volunteer work with children suffering from cancer there for a while, and they are premier research center, and the people who go there are the cases that no one else would take because they're a rare form of cancer, and it's usually terminal. But they're doing a lot of research there and collaborating, and I think other places are too. So explain, are you saying that people aren't sharing their research, or that there's too much politics? What are you saying there?
So, there's a few things that come together, and you'll see where collaboration plays an incredibly important role.
Right.
And I'll show you what the issue is. So
Okay.
you and your listeners would probably be surprised to learn that our country does not have a single database for pediatric diseases or disorders. We don't have one central database where someone can go that has everything that we know. And I'll pick a disease. I'll pick a glioblastoma, or I'll take leukemia as an example. You can't go to a single database where every single piece of research that's been done throughout the United States, yet alone the world, is in one place. And within that same database, we don't have every single drug or every single non-traditional treatment, such as herbal medicine,
Right.
or Eastern medicine. We don't have how all of that impacts that disease. So I designed a framework for terminal diseases that applies to any terminal disease, and I met with 120 practitioners over the last 2 years, and they all agree that this is the right framework. And essentially, what I did is I took 4 categories or 4 areas that you can attack with a treatment to fight any type of disease. And those 4 areas are the disease itself, is one. Second is the cause of that disease. It could be genetic, or it could be a disease, an infection. The third is its source of energy. And in the case of cancer, frequently it's sugar. And then the fourth, which is the most important one, and we're starting to see some progress, is the environment that in your own body that's been compromised. So what that environment usually does is defend your system from contracting any kind of disease. And so in Clara's case, we divided it into 4. So there was the immune system was compromised, There's
Right.
something called angiogenesis, and well, there's some others that are very technical, but I won't get into them. So the idea is to have every single treatment, every single drug, then understand how that drug might be effective in fighting each one of those 4 areas. Then I met with IBM was kind enough to give me access to Watson. Watson, which is their major, big, large computer, can read and categorize 100 million pages of scientific data in 3 seconds.
Wow.
And then they have I know it, but then they have algorithms. So if we had a database, as I just described, they could develop an algorithm that could take all that information, and it also has to assume that all the medical files of each child is in there too. They could run an algorithm that could determine or spit out formulas or treatments that haven't even been considered yet, and give you probabilities of success. So that's the framework, and that's the mission that's the foundation I started, called Bridge to a Cure. And that's the mission, is to improve the effectiveness of how we do pediatric research. So,
is this AI that we're using?
Yes, AI, absolutely. Artificial intelligence, AI. Yeah. So I reviewed this with the new head of the National Institute of Cancer. He was extremely supportive of it. He thought it was terrific. He put me in touch with other people that can help. So, for example, building the database, getting all the information about every child, the history of every child that's ever had each disease into a database requires that it be digitized. So he introduced me to some companies that were doing research or developing the applications that could actually take the typical doctor's handwriting and put it into digitize it so it was accurate. And anyway, so that's where I am on that.
Okay, a question on that. So, sorry, we're at the break. Hang on, we'll be right back with Robert Martin. Hang on.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hello, I'm Lisa Berry. Join me every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Light on Living, a chance to see new, hear different, and feel more as I shine the spotlight on all the ways to lighten the load of life's challenges. Light on Living is your link to that new way you're looking for, that new understanding that will enhance your life, and that positive connection that will support your growth. So join me and you'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you.
Hi, this is New Age Grammy winner Paul Avgerinos. Thanks for listening to OMTimes Radio, and please support my peaceful healing music with a purchase at iTunes, Amazon, or wherever you shop for fine music. Just put my name into the search engine, Paul Avgerinos. A, V like Victor, G like George, E-R-I-N-O-S. You can also visit me at roundskymusic.com. Thanks for listening, and I'm wishing you the brightest of blessings.
In the wake of a disaster, what one thing can you send that will help people the most? A blanket, a tent, a sandbag, a doctor. Actually, if you send a monetary donation, you send all these things. Even a small donation can make a big impact and can quickly become exactly what people affected by disaster need most.
In the wake of a hurricane, your monetary donation can make a huge difference to those in need. To donate, visit supporthurricanerelief.org. That's supporthurricanerelief.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Practical Intuitive Mind, Body, Spirit for the Real World. It's Robin Fritz, and I'm chatting with Robert Martin, who lost his granddaughter Clara a year ago to brain cancer, and who has been instrumental in creating an organization he calls Bridge to a Cure Foundation and consolidating research that hasn't come together yet. So, Robert, welcome back. And so you're consolidating a research through your organization using a high-powered computer that can really just jumpstart the connections there. Are they also discovering areas where different kinds of cancers and illnesses have resulted in, if not a cure, then extended lifetime, and kind of consolidating ideas on treatment that way too? Did that question just make sense?
Well, actually, that's how I started off. When I learned that there was not a cure for Clara, my first step is, well, okay, what kind of research is being done to extend the child's life,
right, with
the hope that some of the progress that's being made will keep her around until there is a breakthrough. And the truth is, there isn't any research. There wasn't one research program anywhere in the United States whose mission was to develop a treatment to extend the child's life. And their position,
wow.
And I discussed this with a number of oncologists, and they had the same response. But when I gave them an analogy, that kind of changed their mind. But what they said to me is that, well, when they look for a cure and they don't find the cure, often what they do find is something that will, in fact, extend a child's life. But my point was that might be so, but you're not going to be, if the mission is finding a cure, it's different than a mission than finding a treatment. I'm sorry to use a baseball analogy, but it's like if you're sending a batter up to bat and you want him to hit a home run, which is like the cure, he's only going to swing at certain pitches, and he's going to swing with all his might. He's going to strike out a lot. He's not going to get a lot of hits. Whereas if you tell somebody to get up at bat, and I want you to get on base any way you can, which is like the sustainability treatment, then they're going to have a bigger selection of pitches to swing at.
Exactly.
So that was the analogy, and then they shook their head yes, but then it came down, which enough has been written about it. But I mean, the pharmaceutical industry essentially calls the shots, and they're looking.
Well,
for
they do clinical trials.
You'd be surprised to learn that only 12% of the clinical trials ever make it to trial, and the reason being, again, it comes back to collaboration. A lot of the oncologists would prefer not to send their patients to a research center that's not within their own research institution, but rather would give them something that was in their own.
Right. So. Yeah. Well, people are trying to advance their careers, and the larger picture can disappear in that. Surprisingly, I know people who have suffered from this particular form of cancer, and I know several who have gone through clinical trials that did extend their life for a period of time. So what you're saying is we need a way to get these people all together, all on board the same train.
Yeah, and there's two ways to do that, and that's what I'm wrestling with now. It could be done at the government level, which would be the NIH, the National Institute of Health.
Right.
But unfortunately, government, the bureaucracy is so horrible that I fear that nothing would get done. The other option is the private sector. And there is a pilot being conducted by Eric Lefkowski. Are you familiar with Groupon?
Right.
Yeah. So he founded Groupon, a very wealthy guy. He started a company called Tempest, and he's working with 10 research centers developing a a database, as I just talked about, for one disease, and so that would be a good learning model to work with. But he's doing it on a profit motive. I mean, it costs people, if they want to participate in this, they have to pay. So there's those two models. But what I'm trying to do now is to build awareness in the United States, to get 1 million people signed up. They don't have to donate, but donations are appreciated, to say that they support this initiative. Then to find the right place for this foundation to sit. I need an organization that has the resources and influence to drive the initiative. For a 71-year-old guy to be driving this thing doesn't make a lot of sense. So,
well, a question. Okay, for the audience who's listening here, who almost everyone in the world now knows someone who's had cancer or some other life-threatening disease. Go back and define for us specifically the initiative. Exactly what is it?
So the mission is to increase the pace and success of pediatric research by unlocking resources already available today. And this is for not just chronic diseases, but also disorders like attention deficit disorder or autism. It's the same situation. We need to have pediatric databases, robust pediatric databases, for researchers to develop the kinds of solutions and treatments that these kids deserve.
Absolutely right. So a couple of things come to mind. First tell people how they can contribute, and then I have a couple other questions.
Sure. You can go to www.bridgetoacure.org, and it explains in more detail the vision and the mission and how you can support this effort, how you can make a difference.
Okay,
at the bottom
awesome.
of the page, there's two ways to do that. You can click to join the crusade, and you can also click to donate funds if you choose.
So I urge everyone listening to this today to go to that website, bridgetoacure.org. See what you can contribute to that support, if nothing else, to help these people meet their goals. But a couple questions. I know when my brother was ill, and then as time moved forward, there's St. Jude's Children's Hospital. There's, again, the Fred Hutch Cancer Research Institute here in Seattle. Would an organization like that work, an existing organization, or are you looking to create a new one?
I am not looking to create a new one. I am looking.
That would seem really hard.
No, that's and that's not my expertise anyway. I mean, what I'm trying to do is, if I can get a support of 1 million people just signed up, they don't have to give money. I can then take it to St. Jude is a good example. I mean, the work that they do is wonderful. They save and help so many children in need. And it's a wonderful institution, and all the research centers that exist. I mean, they're all trying to do the right thing. But
right, and in Seattle we have Children's Hospital Organization, which is gigantic.
And you've got some fairly wealthy people in the neighborhood that can contribute.
Yes,
to that.
Yes, we do.
But it all has to come together. Even all the foundations. People would be surprised to hear that there are almost 2 million charities and foundations in the United States. And many of them were started by people with good intentions, but there's an awful lot of overlap. There's an awful lot of. There could be so many synergies if we could just all come together. Those that are driving the same, working on the same theme, could come together.
Right, I think that's important. There are a lot of people out. Well, do you see all the celebrities and so on starting their own foundations? And I always think, why can't you join up with somebody else and join forces? And that's exactly what you're saying.
Yes, no, exactly. I mean, if maybe it's the National Institute of Health that should hold a forum that would bring in representations from all the key stakeholders and go into breakout groups and let's figure this thing out. How do we come together in a way that will really leverage all the resources and the great minds that are available out there to make a difference?
So I know you've probably thought about this, but tell us about other so we're talking about medical institutions. Then here in Seattle, we have the Gates Foundation. They're doing all kinds of things, from vaccinations in third world countries and so on. So the possibility of attracting an organization or people with deep pockets to create this outside the normal structure. Right.
So I'm working now with an agency to develop a presentation to because of the career I had. I'm fortunate enough to know a lot of people with deep pockets.
Right.
So now I have a powerful story to tell, which I'm putting into a presentation, and we'll go from individual to individual to begin to raise the money that I need, not to build the website. That's way too. That's going to be an enormous amount of money, but to get the support of the public behind this, so then I can go to Gates is a good example. I studied what the Gates Foundation did in Africa. They set the standard by far, whereas other foundations were just sort of giving things away, and corrupt governments were taking advantage of it. The Gates Foundation put in a process that ensured that the funds were going into reach the users that desperately needed it, whether that be this was in the case of HIV vaccination. I mean, it was just brilliant. So he'd be perfect because he understands how to make this work,
right,
and to cut through the bureaucracy. Yeah.
Right, and it's even more important now because my understanding is the current administration of our country is actually cutting access to medical information, to tons of research, and that's like backwards instead of forwards.
Yeah, I'd have to see what's being cut because I do think there could be a lot of wasted research out there.
Well, I think it's like they cut databases from people being able to tap into research that's actually out there, which is like crazy stuff. That doesn't even make sense.
I
go ahead.
See what you're saying. No, I see what you're saying. No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, so it's coming down to the people and I think great movements throughout history have come down to the people. You can't rely on your government. You have to have people who have vision, people who have a stake in the situation to stand up and be counted and say, where can we go from here, and plow through it. And what you're talking about can take generations, and we don't want to wait that long. We don't need to lose any more Randys or Claras to childhood diseases.
You're right.
So where are you now? Go ahead.
As part of this effort, I mentioned that I'm an author too, and
right.
The books that I write are meant to help children who may be dealing with either a socialization issue or a chronic disease or a disorder. I have a new book a new series that's being launched next week called The Amazing Ninja Brothers series.
Cool.
And the first book in the series is called Entering the Deep Unknown. And what this series is about children who have psychological disorders. I don't use the term psychological disorder because it gives the wrong connotation to children. They
right.
really have minds that work differently.
Right,
so the
exactly.
The objective of these books, and the first, as I said, is attention deficit disorder, is to help a child that has the disorder gain the self-confidence and understand the journey ahead. But equally, if not more important, to help his classmates understand that hey, this is a classmate that's actually quite bright. His mind works differently, and this is how you can support him. You need to understand what he's going through and help him. And I've gotten a lot of support from psychologists.
Yeah, and that's a tremendous contribution. Kids can really be cruel to other kids, and it's almost like they just don't understand. And bringing that understanding really makes a huge difference. I had a classmate when I was in grade school who really couldn't attend school because he had a lot of issues and he had to use crutches to even walk. And he died of his illness. And years later, after my father died, his mom came to prepare food at the reception. And she said to me, I've always treasured you, Robin, because you're the only one who looked at him like he was a real kid.
Yeah,
and he treasured that, and he always talked about his friend Robin. And this is years later that she still remembered that. And you're right, children really need to understand that just because they look different, walk different, have issues or whatever, they're still kids. They still need friends. They still need to have a life with other kids, and it can be really, really hard. So you also wrote the book Super Clara.
Yes,
right?
I wrote
so
this.
So tell us about that.
I wrote this with my other granddaughter, and Super Clara was all about capturing the courage that she showed to all of us and letting the world know. So it's about, it's in her honor. It's about a young girl that has cancer and how she learns to face the challenges, such as the radiation treatments or the chemotherapy, and to help her classmates understand what it was all about, and explains it in simple terms so all children, if they have a friend that has this type of cancer or any type of cancer, they will understand a little bit more. And then I use her visits with other animals who are behaving like she behaved initially, for example, resisting the taking of medication.
Right.
So she makes that, I remember when I behaved that way, but I learned that's not the right way to do it. So it's a book that gives courage. It helps children who are fighting their own battles.
That is awesome.
The journey ahead, yeah.
That is awesome. Hang on, we're at a break here.
Okay.
And I think we're at a break. And we'll come back and talk about your work as a grandparent. Hang on. We'll be back with Robert Martin.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On. My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Hi, this is recording artist and composer Yuval Ran, inviting you to a voyage through the chakras, a new double album of guided meditations to transform your life, a sublime musical medicine for nourishing inner peace and reaching to your higher virtues. Get it now at metamindfulnessmusic.com, METTA mindfulnessmusic.com.
911, what is your emergency?
My kid shot himself.
All right, where's the wounds?
911, what's your emergency?
Please help, my son shot his brother.
911, what is your emergency? Okay.
911, please state your emergency.
Every day, 8 kids and teens are unintentionally killed or injured by loaded and unlocked guns.
It wasn't locked.
Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and End Family Fire.
Welcome back to the Practical Intuitive Mind, Body, Spirit for the Real World. It's Robin Fritz, and we're chatting with Robert Martin. Robert has created an organization, Bridge to a Cure Foundation, to help solve childhood illnesses. And he's also an author who's created some wonderful children's books to help kids understand what other kids are going through with illnesses. So, Robert, tell people how to find your books. And then I want to talk to you about your role as a grandparent.
Sure. I have a website. It's www.robertmartinauthor.com. And there you can you'll see the books that are available, and there's a little synopsis that explains each one.
Awesome. So looking for those books, go to robertmartinauthor.com and support his work in the world, helping children. So let's talk about being a grandparent. That's something I didn't get to be in the world, but you have some real amazing ideas and suggestions for people. So let's talk about that. Being a grandparent.
Yes. Just one comment I should have made about the books. That, all the net proceeds from any of the books that I sell go into the foundation. It's another form of fundraising for the.
Of course. Absolutely. So you're not only getting a fun book, you're contributing to Robert's organization, and that's going to help solve childhood problems, right? We're going to get the cures here. Get the cures. So tell us about being a grandfather.
Yeah, being a grandparent. So it became clear to me that the demands and the stress of everyday life shave away so many of the hours parents have available for their children.
Right.
I just don't know how they manage today. There's so much going on. And I hear that battle cry often. It just isn't enough time in the day, even for my own kids. So I have, I had 4. I have 3 now, but I have 1 granddaughter, and I have 2 adopted grandsons, and they're African American, and one has ADHD. That's how I became so involved with ADHD.
Okay.
But so seeing that my kids were always they're always close with their own, and they're great parents, but there's times when they're just being pulled away. There just isn't enough time, and I see this with so many of my friends with their children. So, there's a role for grandparents. I mean. And most of us grew up in the '60s, so we were about a better world. That's what we.
Well, that's what we were planning, right?
Yeah.
That's what we were planning.
But our intentions were good. But a grandparent can be an emotional rock, and a wise friend, and a playful elder.
Exactly.
We're not judgmental. And so I created this website because it's not always obvious on, what can you do and how do you do this? So I put out a blog that tries to give some coaching tips, and a lot of it's the obvious, but it's often helpful to go back and read the obvious. It just reinforces what you always thought. But then I provide some articles and some blogs on issues that are happening in the world today, and to provide a perspective that how we may want to pay attention to those issues because they're impacting our children, and there's something that we can sit down and talk to our children about. And, for example, the gun shooting that took place in Florida. How do you have that conversation? What's that conversation look like? And is it just about changing the gun laws, or is it bigger than that? So I try to take issues that the children may hear about in the news and make it relevant to them, and we communicate that through the grandparents. It's a great way for grandparents to, grandparents are not as necessarily as emotionally involved politically, and they have perhaps a little bit better at maintaining a balance and not going down that road of one party versus the other, just staying at the high level, talking about issues and talking about them in a productive, in an understandable way for children.
And it's really creating community. I grew up in a small town, as I said, and when my brother died, people were like, wow, what do we do kind of thing. But still, that small town and those connections where people knew each other, and I haven't been back there in many years. I live in a big city. You have to work really hard to create community, and what you're talking about is creating community within the family, and it was always the whole notion, it takes a village, right? It takes a village to do everything. I am unfortunately, not a grandparent or a parent, but I'm an aunt.
That's great.
And,
you can do a lot as an aunt.
Exactly. And I have biological nephews, and I have children who've been in my lives, my friends' kids, who were 20 before they realized I wasn't their real aunt. And they still call me aunt. But those are, I know, and it's funny because it's always, hi, Aunt Robin, and I'm like, you're 40 now, But the really cool thing is there is a role for us, whether you're a grandparent or it's the role of the elder, it's the role of the village. And I've been involved in those kids' lives, and we went on vacation. They know that they could call me. Just recently I got a phone call. A family animal had to be euthanized, and they know it's a safe place to call, to cry, to share their feelings. And there needs to be more of that in the world, Robert. So you're lucky to be a grandfather, but I think your grandkids are lucky to have this wise person who understands they have needs beyond their parents, places where they can go to be safe and to have a fun conversation or a tough one and know that you're behind them.
Thank you.
That is awesome.
And there's some, grandkids don't always want to warm up. I mean, there are days when, grandkids just want to hang out with their buddies,
That's true.
Papa, I'll see you later, which is fine. That's nothing wrong with that.
It happens.
Another item that's on the website to help grandparents is I have these 3- and 4-page mysteries that they can solve together with their grandkids.
Oh,
so they
awesome!
can read them together, and then at the end of each mystery, there are 3 possible villains. So they click on which one they think it is, and then that takes you to where the answer is, what the logic is, why that one was the villain. So it's a fun exercise for grandparents to do with their grandchildren.
And kind of to get them off their cell phones a little bit and back into the world.
Yeah. I mean, doing jigsaw puzzles and all those sorts of things are wonderful ways. And you'd be surprised, once you start, when you suggest a jigsaw puzzle, they're not that crazy about it. But once they get involved with it, they're hooked. They love it.
Yeah, it's awesome. So what is next for you?
Well, I have. I'm finishing 2 more books and a memoir, and plus a memoir. So the
busy.
Next book, the next book in the Amazing Ninja Brother series is going to deal with ODD, which is obstinance and disobedience disorder. 13% of the kids in the
Really?
Yeah, well, 13, really? Okay. Yeah, from a statistical standpoint, I should have mentioned up front that, there are 75 million children in the United States. 30 million of those children either have a chronic disease or a psychological disorder. I mean, it's outrageous that it's reached that level. But so one on ODD. I'm doing the second book in the Keira and Papa Detective Agency series.
Awesome.
And then I also write with my granddaughter, and that series deals with socialization issues. Every book takes place in a different part of the world, so the kids learn a little bit about those parts of the world. But then there's behavioral things that only a child can talk with their grandparent, because grandparents aren't judgmental. So Papa is obviously the grandfather, and Keira is the granddaughter, and they have this
That's awesome.
unique relationship.
Well, being a grandparent or an aunt or uncle, you're a step removed from the parental authority figure. So a little bit less stress and judgment right there just by being the extended family.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
So Robert, you are an inspiration. People, and I know from my own family, my parents fell into despair, never recovered from the loss of my brother. There was no support back then, but you're a courageous man. You have weathered a very difficult situation, losing a granddaughter to cancer. But you're an inspiration to all of us, and a reason why it's my privilege to have guests like you on my show. Mind, body, and spirit is a real thing. It's contributing to the world in the best way we can. Things don't always go the way we want. It's life, but we can keep moving forward, and you're an example of how people can do that. So I appreciate you sharing time with people today. I know you're an inspiration to listeners. So one more time, we're right at the end of our hour here. Let's have people figure out how they can contact you. So your website for your books, for your puzzles for kids, for ways to grandparents and aunts and uncles to connect with their children in their lives is robertmartinauthor.com. Correct? And to find out more about how to support research into children's diseases, life-threatening illnesses, it's bridgetoacure.org, correct?
Correct. Yep,
correct.
Absolutely.
So people can sign up there to get notification of what's going on. They can also contribute to the cause. And Robert, keep in touch with us. Let us know how it's going, how we can continue to support you in your work. Once again, my deepest condolences to you. I know it's your one-year anniversary on losing your beloved granddaughter. Thank you for your courage in stepping up and speaking your truth. Thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you, Robin, and thanks for all you do.
Thank you, and take care. So thank you. And so for all of us today, as we wrap up today, I want to thank you once again for joining us, and to thank OMTimes for creating this amazing forum where people all over the world can come together and find ways to boost ourselves and the communities, to ignite the passion in our lives, mind, body, and spirit. Coming up next week, we're going to be talking about what space clearing is and why it matters, how we can rejuvenate our personal and our business lives by helping our spaces be their best. And coming up in the future, too, we'll also be talking about, what other beings are out there besides us in the world, how they inhabit our spaces, what we can do about that. I have other guests coming up in the future talking about scientific research, everything that we're doing out there in the world, because this is a place where we come together, mind, body, and spirit, to support each other and to make our best contributions in the world. And we are our best selves by whatever we are doing in the world today. Nothing that you do for work, nothing that you do to inspire yourself and others goes to waste. It is all valuable. So if you'd like to find me and my services, you can find my website, robinfritz.com. That's ROBYNFRITZ.com. I offer personal and business intuition, mediumship for both people, talking to our deceased people and animals, animal communication, space clearing, spiritual awakening and soul retrieval, past life and between life regression, and mentoring workshops, webinars, and energy healing. So as we close out the day, grounding you back into your body from that connection to Fallon. And once again, thanking author Robert Martin for being our special guest today, and peace and blessings to him and his family. Cross your hands on your heart and just imagine that healing energy is going into you from the universe. And as you breathe that in, you can also put your hands in front of your face, and as the breath of your breathing, your air, your body, imagine that as healing energy cross your hands on your heart. Take a deep breath and just feel that energy supporting you so that you can be your best and make your own contribution to the world. Thank you for joining us today. I look forward to being here again with you next week. Take care and goodbye.